Hi, everyone. Welcome, number sixes, or are they number twos? I guess we will find out. This is Robert Meyer Burnett and myself with our new Prisoner Show 6 of 1. We'll be discussing the episodes of The Prisoner. And I think maybe this first part, we're going to be branching out into more generalized prisoner discussion as well. Until we get very specific with the episodes that we go into,
right?
Because there's certain elements of Arrival that you can't really discuss without going into kind of like grander things about the series and the show, as well as talking about the themes of the show and the vision of the show and the impression that a lot of directors had about the show versus what McGoohan's idea of the show was. So there's incredible scope here to kind of branch out and get into these different parts. So big thank you to everyone for turning up, and let's get into this. So first things first, Robert, thank you so much indeed. When you said you had such a love of The Prisoner, my heart leapt, because this show to me is...
Well, when we were talking before, we had such a great conversation, and I don't come across many people that have a great love for The Prisoner anymore. And to me, it's one of the cornerstones of my love of genre, science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And growing up as a kid, some of the more seminal things, obviously, people know the original Star Trek is something that's near and dear to my heart, but also the Twilight Zone, maybe more than anything else, because ideologically there was so much going on there. But this show, The Prisoner, when I first saw it, you couldn't see it at all in America, and it wasn't available on video when I'm talking about, I think I first saw it when I was 12, maybe.
I started racking my brain as to where did I come across The Prisoner? Because I was like, I can't remember where I came across The Prisoner. And I think the way that I came across The Prisoner personally was I was a big James Bond fan.
Yep.
And I was watching the James Bond films. And as we discussed when we had a chat a few weeks ago, once you get into something, you want to start looking into other very similar things.
Yes.
And so I was looking for similar kind of shows to Bond, because I loved the early Bonds. I loved that whole 60s era of
me too.
The whole, everything about it, the aesthetic of it, the attitude of it, the whole job lot. And so I think I got pointing to Danger Man. And Danger Man, I think I almost immediately, after looking into Danger Man, suddenly found out McGoohan and The Prisoner. And then that's where the focus came on The Prisoner show.
Yeah, I mean, I came at it from more of a science fiction perspective. I'd read about it, and I think Starlog magazine, and the first time it aired in the States when I got to see it was on our public television station. It was on PBS, which was so odd, that had shows like The Electric Company and Sesame Street, and then there was documentaries, and then like I, Claudius first aired in the States on PBS. So it was very, very highbrow. It was public television, so you were being given things that were important. And when this finally showed up, it was one of those things, because this was pre home video, really. And so I, like the year before that, I got my hands on a VCR, and because I'd heard about this, and I was told that this show was a science fiction show, and I would watch anything, and I knew it was spy related, and and it seemed to me more of I thought it was going to be like a Twilight Zone thing, and I knew it was 17 episodes long, which seemed odd to me because American shows ran much longer than that, and that was all. It was only 17 episodes, and I'm like, really? Like, I didn't understand much about British programming and how you could have like a 6-episode show, or I found all that later. So everything,
there's very specifics we could go into about the numbers of it and what the numbers were of it. To people who are coming in just to watch us anyway, how would you personally describe, to a brand new person, to somebody, how would you describe The Prisoner?
That's a really good question. I would say that The Prisoner is a show about a man, well, John Drake, or number 6, It is about a man that is taken against his will and sequestered away in a place, an open air prison that is very pleasant, that is very delightful to be in on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a place that is designed to destroy his individuality and wrest from him his very soul, not in a supernatural way, but there are forces that are controlling this place, this open air prison, the village, and all they care about is extracting not just the information in this man's mind, but also everything that makes him uniquely him.
Yeah.
And they're going to do everything they can to destroy him on every level. But it is basically also a story about psychological brinksmanship and how do you maintain your individuality when the society that you're living in is doing everything it can to destroy what you are as a sovereign individual and make you bend and be part of this society the way it wants you to be, not the way that you are. It wants to take away everything that you are and bend it to the will of whatever society they're trying to create or they want you to be a part of. And one of the things that when I was a kid watching it, I didn't quite understand all of the philosophical underpinnings and everything that was going on. I mean, there's a lot of surrealism here.
Sure.
There's a lot of psychological gamesmanship that's being played that I loved. But I knew that my understanding at the time, I just hadn't read enough. I didn't know enough when I saw it, but it's still I was a huge James Bond fan. It's still as a pulp spy thriller science fiction show. It's still, I was riveted. Riveted by it, but the overarching themes sort of might have they certainly, I mean, this is also the same time I was discovering movies like A Clockwork Orange.
Sure.
That in a way was also similar themed about the destruction of the individual, and using brainwashing techniques to strip away. And it's funny because I never really thought about that until just now. I was very attracted to all of this kind of material. Give me something where the human spirit is being crushed by an opposing, very formidable force, and the individual standing in front of that force saying, "No, you will not take my individuality from me."
I think it all depends on when you watch The Prisoner. When was the first time you watched The Prisoner? Because the first time for me was mid-teens.
Yeah.
Kind of mid-teens is when I first started to watch The Prisoner. And the younger I think you are, age-wise, the more sense of individuality you have. Because you have not gone into the grind of society yet.
Right.
You've not gone into the everyday life, the 9 to 5, the Monday to Friday, the routine of existence. You have the routine of school. You have the routine of meals at your home that you are provided. But other than that, you have a very strong sense of self as a kid.
Yeah.
And you're discovering all these new things all the time about yourself. You discover sexuality, you discover arts, you discover sports, you discover things which suddenly appeal to you. So it's a great time of learning. But as you'll notice, I think maybe only one time during the series, there's probably a number 2 that's younger than number 6. They're either older by a decade or 2, or they're round about the same age, in which case you kind of have the dichotomy sort of relationship. But it always had that sort of parental, societal, overhanging figure above you, that you were never or very rarely put into a position in the show where you thought the prisoner had the upper hand.
Right.
In a situation, apart from that one episode, which was Hammer and Anvil, which was that was very specifically designed to give the prisoner the upper hand, because that was dealing with, different things, but which we won't go into because that's an episode we will get into when it has its time. But the sense of the individual is a key theme, because you could watch it very superficially, and there's nothing wrong with that. You could watch it very superficially as a secret agent has resigned and he's been put into a village because he knows too much.
He knows, and his mind, his secrets are worth a lot of money on the open market, whatever that open market may be. Like, is he going to go defect to the Russians? Is he going to go to the Chinese? Is it going to be like a Manchurian Candidate thing? You don't really know. I mean, I think what we didn't say is that for people that don't know what the show is, yes, this is a former secret agent who resigns from his employers, which presumably was MI6 or something like that.
It was a London-based spy organization.
And in a way, I always thought that the prisoner knew James Bond. Like, at some point, like in my own head canon, like they had crossed paths, they knew each other, and you'd never seen this before. You always thought that agents like Double O's would die in the line of duty and they would be replaced. But for whatever reason, and you have no idea why, which is part of the show, why he resigns, and after he resigns, he rushes home to pack because he knows he has to get the hell out of Dodge.
Yes.
And they have the drop on him. They gas him. He's rendered unconscious, and then he wakes up in this bucolic, sort of timeless
it's a Mediterranean.
Yeah, the seaside resort that looks like a great place to go on vacation, but not to spend the rest of your life there being probed and prodded and basically psychologically tortured on a daily basis, where you don't know what's happening and what's real and who's your friend and who's not. And at the same time, they want to extract information from you and you're not going to give it to them. No. So it's a great, I mean, I think the premise of it, the setup is irresistible, and it's irresistible from the first moment they tell you. Like, if you haven't seen the show, the prequel show, let's call it the prequel show that actually aired first, but even the opening sequence explains everything you need to know about the premise of the show.
Yes. You could jump in, just see that opening montage and be like, I get it. I understand. I understand the series of events, and now it's a cat and mouse game between number 6 and number 2.
Yeah, and people should also understand that this village is presided over. No one has a name. Everybody only has numbers, and they wear their numbers on these pins that they always have on them. And the leader of this village is the mysterious number 2. And one of the things I really liked is every episode, almost every episode, sometimes there's an exception, but we'll get into that later. There's a new number 2. And played by different actors. And it's almost like if the new number 2 fails to break our character who's number 6, then they get replaced by somebody who's going to try a different tactic.
But what happens to them? And that question kind of gets answered sometimes.
Yes.
And then other times you're like, oh, maybe this time not. And it's quite funny because we talk very contemporary now. We're talking about constantly about forced diversity and things like this. Yesterday there was a tweet came out. Oh, Velma's gay in Scooby-Doo, and he's just like, no, she isn't. Somebody from a studio decided to virtue signal and pander. This is a character which has been into Shaggy for a lot of years, and So it's just like, stop it with this kind of thing. The Prisoner is a show that actually could have benefited from some diversity in terms of the number 2, because it really played into the aspect of whose side, where these people coming from, because they're all very quintessentially English, but they were not English. That was absolutely cast iron, that some might be, some most definitely were not. I know it did have a fair number of female number 2s. I think there was at least 4. There was a cameo female number 2 in Hammer and Anvil, but So it was for 67, it was kind of sort of ahead of its time, in as much as it had no problem putting a female number two into the show. But this is a show that really could have benefited from a black number two, an Asian number two, and really put that whose side are you on to full effect.
Oh, I totally agree with that. But again, when you think about the realities of television production in England in the mid to late 60s, there was only a certain number of. It's very funny. People always say, like, well, you're not casting these people on purpose. And we even get that today. And it's like, well, no, we're looking for the best actors for the roles that we can get them in. And, it's British acting. The people in the British theater were jumped from TV to movies. Yeah. They were all workaday actors, and they would do whatever came along. And one of the things I did love about the show is there's so many great British actors of the time that come through The Prisoner, come through the show. But you're right. I mean, when I think about how could the show have been better, if they had different nationalities and different ethnicities in the roles of number two, it would have been really, really interesting, because it would have thrown you for a loop. But I mean, I understand that the time it was made, they didn't do that as much. I'm sure they would have liked to too.
Yeah, but I can't. I mean, there is a counter argument too. I could make a counter argument to myself that by making them all quintessentially English, but you not knowing where they're from,
right,
actually adds a little bit more of a sinister undertone to it.
Yeah,
is because, again, we're talking about assimilation into society, and you could say that the number twos were attempting to pander or to at least to what's the word I'm looking for, to coexist with number six's idea of
right.
Of who the leadership was or where he's come from. Because in the first episode in Arrival, he distinctly says, we don't know what number two says, we don't know what side you're on. And number six says, I'm on our side. He just immediately believes that he's actually been taken by the British government.
Yes.
But then it becomes, whose side are you on? But then he starts to understand that this might not all be as it seems.
No, and the big question that gets asked at the beginning of every episode is, who is number one? Who is, and that question meaning, who is behind all of this? Yes. I always thought of number one as not so much a person as it is the answer, like, who is God, essentially? Who is who is the and it's what's interesting too is this also, and you watch the first episode, everything about surveillance culture, the fact that there's cameras everywhere. There's great moments where there's a great
very
scene.
Orwellian.
Yeah, very Orwellian. There's this great, one of my favorite things in the opening of Arrival is when he goes to see number two. He's summoned because he's trying to figure out the lay of the land. He arrives at this village. He doesn't know where the hell he is. So the first, he's kind of walking around, looking at everything, seeing.
But you're seeing this beautiful Mediterranean architecture. You see these arches, these beautiful arbors, these colorful houses. Everything's looking very twee.
Yeah, and he goes up into this bell tower to the highest point that he can find is to look at the lay of the land, and then he gets summoned to meet number two in a very futuristic. I love this stuff, sort of a sci-fi control room. Number two's base of operations
after going through a very standard sort of hallway, etc.
Right,
and then bang,
and then you're into sci-fi land. Where and there's this great moment where there's obviously the Hervé Villechaize character, the small butler, brings out his breakfast, and so number two asks number six, how many eggs?
Somebody Muscat, wasn't it? Somebody Muscat.
Yeah. And asks number six. Number two's asking number six, what would you like for breakfast? Do you take one egg or two? And he says two. And the butler opens up, and there's already exactly what he wants for breakfast. They already know, and yet he number two makes him answer these questions, even though they're way ahead of him, and they're completely. It's to put him off guard, but tells the audience that these people go deep. They know.
How'd you take it with lemon? Drops the lemon in.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great moment. You realize that nowadays, all of your Amazon your entire Google search history would be known. If they made it now, they would show you everything, that every transaction you've made over the last 20 years. They would give you, and even though it's just a simple scene of them understanding what breakfast he likes, if you watch it now, you're like, oh my God, these people know everything there is to know. And it loses none of its resonance that it was, the first episode came out in 1967, because we get it. Like, even though it's 53 years later, we understand that it's much easier to find out everything about a person now than it was back 53 years ago. And having just watched Arrival, it's chilling. You look at it now.
Oh, yeah.
And it metaphorically, that whole little scene, and then it goes in and you see that they've had him under surveillance for a long time with photographs and things like that. But it's still, the point is driven home even today for today's audience.
I love the way you saw a lot of the shots from the surveillance cameras.
Oh,
so that always gave you that unease that you were constantly being watched. Nothing you could do or say was going to go unnoticed. You would have to be, the mental gymnastics to keep yourself sane in a place like that, knowing that you were always being watched, listened to, had to mind your words, had to mind what you do. But this is all about conformity. This is all about trying to exist in society as an individual.
And at the time, the Cold War was raging. You had what happened in Berlin was still very new. The Berlin Wall had gone up. So East Germany, the Stasi, and what was going on in Russia. And we're just, think about it. We were just a few years away from, or after, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and after the Berlin Wall. So there was so much going on in terms of world politics that this was playing into. And
hadn't landed a man on the moon by then.
No, we had not.
That's 2 years away.
Star Trek had debuted. This came in this, I think, Star Trek second season, and this kind of populist entertainment was incredibly highbrow. I know it's a sci-fi action adventure spy series, but like the best shows, like what Rod Serling was doing on Twilight Zone and Gene Roddenberry was getting away with on Star Trek, Patrick McGoohan, who was the prime mover, and it was interesting, an actor being a prime mover, the architect behind all of this.
Luke Reddy wanted to do More Danger Man,
right?
And Patrick McGoohan is like, no, I don't want to do More Danger Man, but I got this idea.
Yeah,
and
go on. Well, what Alan Moore did for superheroes and Watchmen, Patrick McGoohan was doing for, after the Bond movies came out, there was all like the ripoffs, like Our Man Flint or the Matt Helm movies. So the idea of spies had already become cliche. And 67's When You Only Live Twice came out. So Bond is already 5 movies deep.
Yeah.
And then when you get to this was suddenly, let's take Franz Kafka's The Trial and put it together with James Bond and see where we're going to come up with. It's amazing, especially for the time. There's so much commentary about what was going on in the world today. And now 53 years later, we sort of are living in this crazy dystopian nightmare of our own making that we're not even aware of, because, hey, we have everything.
We're living in the village. We are living in the village right now.
We are living and we're carrying around supercomputers that surveil us all the time. So, it's crazy. And to go back and watch this, I love this show, man.
It's unbelievable because, like I said, you could take a genre like the spy genre, like Bond, how I came across the show, and you could take something and people would be forgiven for thinking this was just going to be another spy show, but it's got a slight twist in as much as he's captured and he's trying to escape. But that gets turned on its head very quickly.
Yeah.
Once he's in the village, you get a couple of episodes that kind of have that same formula. But once you get into the psychological aspect of it, you start to really understand or begin to understand, this is something completely out of place. And there is an episode which I discussed with you before we went live, A Change of Mind, which we will get to. But when I watched that the other day, I was just like, oh my God, this is cancel culture. This is current day cancel culture and social media out of control. which is what I could watch these episodes, and I have watched these episodes over the course of the last couple of days, and there is so much which you can put and see and mirror in today's society.
Oh yeah,
that it is freaky beyond compare. And this is a guy that saw it 53 years ago.
No, it's incredible, and also, you know, there's a lot of politics in this show as well, running for office and what that entails, and how do you make political alliances, and who can you trust, and it's so relevant to today in so many ways. And
on the verge of the American election, folks, go watch Free for All the day before the election. and then you'll see it all again the next day in reality. That's what you're gonna see.
Yeah, and you know, you look at shows like there are modern shows like the British show Years and Years that came out. I don't know if you saw that recently. It was on HBO that Emma Thompson was in. It's a science fiction show. It basically is about a family in Britain and shows like the next 30 or 40 years. It's a 6-episode show. It's really good. And then Black Mirror. So many shows owe The Prisoner a great debt, because it is, I think, one of the most influential television shows of all time.
I think it was. I think nowadays it's a show which maybe because society wants to push it to one side because it wants you to conform. But to me, the Prisoner was always the show that you would recommend to somebody who wanted to feel that they still existed as an individual.
Yes.
This was the rebellious show. This was the show that, you know, never mind having your ears pierced and a tattoo done. This is about freedom of the soul. This is about freedom of you as an individual, not the superficial that you can do, but the internal, the key, the chi, whatever you want to call it. This is what The Prisoner truly is. You want to understand individuality, you watch The Prisoner. You want to understand conformity, you watch The Prisoner. You want to understand how a society tries to destroy your individuality. There's a lot of very simple metaphor out there with the number system. We are numbers. To our banks, we're numbers. To Amazon, we're numbers. We're not, you know, Robert Meyer Burnett. We're not these people. These are all gone by the wayside. We're a factory. We're a factory, and they're farming the factory. So there's sort of very simple metaphor out there as well. But the way that they combined it with something which was contemporary at the time, which was the spy genre, but to put it in such a political way that was interesting to watch, that wasn't partisan, because the whole thing was you as the individual.
Right.
So the politic didn't matter.
Right.
The side of the politics doesn't matter at all. It's about you against the system. So that aspect was great, because you didn't have to say, well, this is actually a far left show, or this is a show that's more centrist, or this is a show about that is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It didn't hold any of those.
If anything, it's the exact opposite of that. I mean, the tribalism that our society has fallen into today. Everybody wants to be. You want to be branded. This show is fighting. I mean, he even says it in the first episode. I will not be stamped, debriefed, you know, folded, spindle, and mutilated. You know, he says it right out. What does he say?
I will not be. Oh God! Now I put him on the spot.
I know. I'm like thinking about the actual
filed, stamped, indexed, debriefed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered.
Right.
My life is my own.
My life is my own. And you think about now. What's so interesting is now all we want to do is define people by their tribes or what groups they belong to, or what numbered. It's the exact. Our civilization today is the exact opposite of what The Prisoner was. I mean, McGoohan saying, "Don't." This is the anti-modern what's been going on now, and it's. I guess for me, that's why I find what's happening in our society, especially being a creature now that's living online, whether you're on Twitter or whatever, how everybody wants to quickly define who you are and put you in to certain groups. Like I get people who talk to me a lot about, your politics is muddled. Like sometimes I think you're a classical liberal, but really you have some conservative ideas too. And I'm like, I don't understand why people don't think human beings are three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to make you a two-dimensional person so they can write down in their little whatever book they have in their brains that, oh, Rob Burnett or Az, they're these kinds of people.
Yeah, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're conservative, you're Labor, you're black, you're white. It's so binary.
It's so binary, and I didn't grow up that way. And I think that's why I find being, I mean, as far as being online as much as I am, I'm on the older end of that. And I find sometimes that when I deal with people that are younger than me, they're so quick to define you based on such a small, limited criteria. And they haven't, like, they might only know you from one thing. And whether it's something you do like my own YouTube show or being on the Schmodown or something, and they define me just by that thing, and they don't know anything else about you. And then when they're surprised, it's not like you go online and give somebody your resume every day. When you're doing things, you're doing, like we're doing this show right now. There might be people that have,
but people have checklists, and they're ready they're ready to tick your checklist when they discuss. All right, you're a this, you're a that.
And I think growing up, watching shows like this, and there's other episodes as well, like there are things I hark back to. There's an episode of The Twilight Zone called The Obsolete Man with Burgess Meredith, which is basically a totalitarian society, and you're considered obsolete because of your belief systems. And I think at the time, coming out of the 50s and the 60s and moving into the 70s, there was a lot of this kind of thought. There was a lot of like what
I Am Legend, stuff like that.
Again, I wish, at the end, I Am Legend has still, even though they've made it into 3 different movies, they've never quite nailed the ending and what the title of the book even means. When Robert Neville is at the end, and his life is at an end. I mean, he's become the monster. He's become what vampires are to us. He's become that to the vampires. He's become the Slayer. And that again, it's funny you bring that book up. That was random, but it was so. But for me, it's delightful that you brought it up because I read that book around the same time. I got that book from the Science Fiction Book Club, and that book was hugely impactful for me too. And I probably read it around the same time that I saw The Prisoner for the first time.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it because it was, again, when we discussed about you need more. I need more stuff. One of the things that was recommended to me was you want to check out I Am Legend then.
Yeah.
Because again, that is about the individual against the machine, I suppose, out there. So yeah, that's another thing that I got recommended at the time, around about the same time as The Prisoner, and that's when
it's funny that you and I mean, it's that Star Trek idea about parallel planetary development. They can have it's another Earth.
Yes,
you and I have like parallel development, and but I've always found it interesting that one of the things that I also find frustrating now, especially being a part of fandom. And we were talking about this a little bit before. When I was younger, my thought was that I needed to see everything to do with science fiction, fantasy, and horror that was available. And like in terms of media, it seemed like it was a surmountable task. Like you could see every movie that was made because there wasn't that many of them. I mean, there was still a lot of science fiction, fantasy, and horror films, but it was manageable. Now, and I'm talking about when I was 13, 14 years old and I first got a VCR, I'm time shifting. I'd never seen a lot of the Hammer horror films. And I'm like, I became a real scholar and I wanted to see everything. Nowadays, people have no interest in going back and seeing. I mean, some people do, but I don't want to generalize. But like for me, I'd have to go back and I need to see George Méliès From the Earth to the Moon, which was made in the teens. It was a silent black and white movie. I need to see Fritz Lang's Metropolis. I can't live my life unless I haven't seen it. And this show was the show that I couldn't get access to. I kept reading about it, and I'd see pictures about it in magazines, and I'm like, how can I see this show? I have to see The Prisoner. And when I finally got to see it, it became, I mean, it was everything that I had hoped and thought it was going to be. And like, it completely lived up to its reputation.
Well, I mean, sorry. I was going to say, we talk about the individual. We talk about the societal aspect of the show. One thing that I think we would be remiss not to mention is the personal nature this has with Patrick McGoohan, because when we're talking about, I would not be push file stamped index brief debriefed or numbered. When he's actually filling in those details, there's a detail which is missing. He says, "You're missing the time of my birth." And he says, "Well, come on, old boy, you bring us all up to speed." And he says something like 421, March 29th, maybe, to 1928. That is the time and date of McGoohan's birth. So McGoohan already has transplanted himself into the show. So it's not just John Drake, it's not just Number 6, it's not just The Prisoner, it's Patrick McGoohan as well. So he's got all these different facets of characters he's played, characters he's created, and his self, which he's placed upon this. And so you can't help but think this show must be excessively personal to him.
Yeah.
And excessively personal in the way that he would perceive and receive the nature of society. Because one massive thing that we haven't mentioned, which I do think we should mention, is Patrick McGoohan was offered the role of James Bond and turned it down.
Yeah.
He turned it down. After Danger Man was ending, he was offered the role. He was offered to take over from Connery as Bond. He turned it down, and he went to Lou Grade with his Prisoner script. That's what he wanted. And he had this big folder that he wanted to explain, and he sat down with Lou, and Lou's like, "Yeah, oh God, listen to me, boy." So he's getting this out. He said, and he's going through this like massive thing. Well, this is this, and he said, Lou just said, "Just Pat, oh boy, shut it down. Just tell me about the show." And so Patrick just went in and actually discussed the show. So this is somebody who doesn't conform as a person. This is Patrick McGoohan. This is somebody who doesn't just want to go into a factory, a spy, fit into a box. And yes, he would have made so much money. He would have got so much fame. It would have opened up so many more doors for him. But that wasn't him as an individual.
Right.
This was a different man altogether, and he put down this, what was going to be, let's go back to this, because I think it's important we discuss this, 7 episodes of The Prisoner. This is what he had in mind, a 7-episode mini-series of The Prisoner. Now, Arrival, Dance of the Dead, Free for All, Chimes of Big Ben, Checkmate, Once Upon a Time, Fallout. Those were the 7 episodes. And Lou Grade, because he was a television man, was like, no, can we get 26? We get 26, we can syndicate to America. Well, not syndicate, but we could sell to America.
Yeah.
A lot better if we had that. And he went away and he came back and he said, look, we can work out 10 more scripts. So we can do 17. And it's like, okay, we'll do 17. But this was meant to be a 7-episode miniseries and done. Now, if you've seen those episodes, you know how well they fit together.
Yeah.
And then when you see the 17 episodes that were put on, one thing which we will get to, I think, a little bit more in depth is Chimes of Big Ben is so out of place as the second episode of the series.
Yeah, I've never. It always.
Just from a time perspective, he's been there a lot longer by the language that's being used. And then you get onto, I think it was maybe episode 7 that they actually had Dance of the Dead. And then you know that, oh my God, this is the second episode, because this is literally carrying on from Arrival. He's brand new to the village. Woof, that should have gone there. So they did play some of the episodes a little bit out of order, which made things, when you were watching the series, a little bit complicated to piece together.
And
in terms of
also,
chronology.
Yeah, the chimes of Big Ben introduces a trope too early on that makes a savvy viewer ahead of the show when maybe they shouldn't be. Like I would have put the chimes of Big Ben before Once Upon a Time. Like save it till Once Upon a Time or Fallout before or close to that, because
I would have had it latter half of the season for sure. Yeah,
because there's something in it, without giving away, you have to watch it, where you're hoping, like, oh my God, really?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh.
But it spins the trope that we already had in the first episode. Attempts to escape through the helicopter. They control the helicopter and make it land.
Yes.
He doesn't get away. Chimes of Big Ben, gets away. Oh, it's a trick. He's actually in the village. Doesn't escape. So you think, oh, so what's going to happen every week is he's going to escape or attempt to escape. It's going to be thwarted. And that's not how the show actually progresses.
No, not at all.
There are some episodes, and I think none more so than Many Happy Returns, where it is a gem, where that actual trying to escape and coming back, it just works perfectly.
Yeah, no, it was great.
But you have like Hammer into Anvil. That's about revenge. That's about justice for number 2 forcing a woman to throw herself out of a window and kill herself during the episode. And
no,
he just wanted to,
there's so much that goes on in terms of it isn't like, every episode of The Fugitive, they were looking for the one-armed man, whereas in this, you want to escape, but it starts to really delve into an examination of what makes a human being. And
because I was more interested in the breaking of him than the escaping of him.
Right, me too.
Why did you resign? That's what I wanted. I wanted them to try and break him, and I wanted his resistance to that, as opposed to him escaping and getting away. That's fine for a couple of episodes. And that's why Chimes of Big Ben should have been episode 14, 15, around about there, as opposed to number 2. Because it kind of gave the wrong impression of what the show was actually going to, intend to be about.
Right, exactly. Although I do love Leo McKern as number 2.
Leo McKern is the best number 2.
He's the best number 2. I mean, he's and it's I always thought, I mean, I don't know if they could have done this, but obviously we also should tell people that, yes, if you're looking at For the Prisoner, you don't want to watch the Jim Caviezel, Ian McKellen TV miniseries they did of it in 2009.
No.
Steer clear of that.
That's The Prisoner made by somebody who read online what they thought The Prisoner was about and then wrote a prisoner show.
Yeah, it's...
They don't get it.
No, and I think, what's so great is these kinds of stories, I think, are irresistible. The individuals standing up. I mean, they go back to things like Brave New World in 1984 and even Terry Gilliam's Brazil. There's stuff, there's elements of these kinds of stories in a lot of other things, but the way this is done is so, and how every episode really examines these things from very interesting angles. Ways they come at things that you wouldn't normally expect, and things happen that were certainly not traditional television fare in the late 60s. I mean, really heady stuff.
Well, I mean, the drug aspect, they were not happy with the drug aspect.
No.
Because, you're going through this psychedelic phase anyway with society and drug use. And, there was the Simpsons episode with the prisoner, everything he does just getting drugged. But that pretty much was what was happening in the show.
Right.
Every time he tried to thwart being drugged, there would be another method of him to be drugged or taken out.
Yeah.
He realizes the hot chocolate is tainted, So he pours the hot chocolate away, gets the water. The water's tainted, and does exactly the same thing. So yeah, but they don't, they didn't want that. And they wanted the drug aspect removing of that. But I personally, one of my favorite episodes, not my favorite episode, but one of my favorite episodes, is Living in Harmony.
Oh, so good.
Because Living in Harmony is such a clever idea about the psychedelic and the use of hallucinogenic drugs, the controlling of the mind, the perception that you think you see what's happening, but what in reality is happening is not the case. And so in Living in Harmony, that aspect works really, really well. There's some aspects they didn't quite nail, like the ending, in terms of the relationship between the three main antagonists in it, so to speak. But the actual situation that he's put in, this Western, he's a sheriff, hands in his sheriff's badge as opposed to resigning, hands over his gun, then gets dragged to this town called Harmony. Very cleverly done. And that side works really well with the drug aspect of it. It works really well in A Change of Mind when we eventually get to that one. But that's about cancel culture. That is about conform or be destroyed.
Yeah,
in essence, and that is cancel culture to today. But that's a trick. That's a trick. They trick him into thinking he's been had a lobotomy. Or it's not a lobotomy. It's a frontal. It's basically tampering with the amygdala, isn't it? It's not quite a full lobotomy, but
right.
Getting rid of those aggression centers of the brain.
But it's now, you talk about cancel culture, this idea that it's wrong think, and that you now it's
mutual.
You must believe this certain thing, and if you don't, and I think one of the things I like about this show is, nowadays we live in a world where, well, you have to think this way. And I always think to myself, well, what you're talking about is, I always say, three-dimensional. This is a very three-dimensional issue, and you've turned it into a one-dimensional issue. And you're not even understanding what it is you're asking me to believe in. Because if I'm going to believe in A, B, and C, what about D, E, F, G, and H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P? Those are all realities as well. And you're not taking into account, by believing in A, B, and C, you're not thinking you're not thinking down the road what you're really asking.
I discussed this a lot recently. This is about received opinion. A lot of people today are getting received opinions. They're hearing opinions and they're liking the sound of it and they're taking it as their own, but they don't understand where that opinion comes from. They don't understand the foundation of that opinion. And so when it comes to either justifying it, they can't. And so things become very confrontational and argumentative very quickly. Or their argument falls apart because they understand that they don't know what they're talking about, because it's a received opinion. It's not something that you have formulated yourself. So there is no true understanding of it. And that, again, is change of mind. It's
that's
very
exactly
much
change of mind.
The village is receiving, you are getting received opinion. This is how you need to be. This is how you need to conform. This is how you need to exist. These are the reasons why. And these opinions are all over the village in banners, questions are a burden to others, answers of whatever.
Or they have all oneself.
Yeah. They always have these little banners around his, happy mind and all this sort of stuff. But that is essentially received opinion. That is working off that assumption, because it's stifling your creativity to understand and develop your own mind, your own state.
Absolutely. And in my lifetime, I've never seen a period where we're at, like now, for instance. And as an example, there's a lot of talk here about defunding our police departments here in America. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, but let's run that down. It's like, the police, they do a lot of things. and I'm liking, I don't trust my fellow mankind to not have police. But the idea that, yes, There is certain problems with how the police go about policing. Definitely communities here in the United States, we have real actual problems that can be addressed. Like, for instance, in World War II, after World War II was over, American GIs were able to avail themselves of what we had here called the GI Bill, that allowed former GIs to get bank loans and buy houses and get education and all that. And it was tremendous. But you know who didn't get the GI Bill in the United States? Black soldiers.
Yeah.
So if black soldiers fought, this is problematic. And this was something that changed it. Another way that the black man and black people were kept down in this country. This was a law. They fought for this country and they couldn't even avail themselves of the law. Well, let's talk about those kinds of things. Nowadays, we're just talking about this blanket idea of racism. And I'm like, this is not helpful, because what you're doing is you're saying nobody likes racism. I mean, ultimately, but we have to, what does that mean? And so what happens is the real systemic problems, like the legal problems about how Black Americans were actually prevented from availing themselves of the very tools that the rest of America used to thrive and grow, and it helped make the middle class in the United States in the 50s. They didn't get that. Well, that's what we have to address. We have to talk about these kinds of things where we can really start helping and changing, and not just with racism, but with so many things in the United States. Education. Why are we teaching people education should be something that doesn't have a profit to it? Education, the idea of education exactly.
The general is all about education.
The education is a profit unto itself. Knowledge, what you're getting, and having that three-dimensional, well-rounded knowledge base that is not only coming at you from one ideological perspective, but all ideological perspectives. I mean, you should be talking about, if you want to call yourself a Democrat or a Republican or Labor, or in your case, the Tories, right? You got the Tories,
maybe, yeah.
But you need to know all of those points of view. You can't be an effective thinker in the United States, for instance, if you don't understand Republican issues, independent issues, Democratic issues. If you don't know all sides of the story, you are not going to be an effectual a citizen. How can you be
things aren't black and white. Life isn't black and white. Two probably the biggest things, for example, you could be against the Second Amendment. You could be against the right to bear arms, but you could be pro-life. And that's two things on the same political side. But it doesn't. But this is, you break apart from that. This is why we can't. People are so ridiculous to be looking at stuff in so binary terms. Well, and the general is all about the abuse of education.
Absolutely.
And the parrot learning, and the very curriculum which you're just being force fed. And do you really understand it? No. Because you can understand it for a little bit, like a parrot, like parrot teaching. When was the Battle of Agincourt? 18 whatever it was. And then later on in the episode, the number 14 or whatever it was says where he changes up the question slightly. He says something like, "Why was there the Battle of Agincourt?" And the prisoner says 1836, whatever. And he said, "No. Wrong." I said, "Why?" And because he's been taught to answer in a set way in a certain time. There hasn't been any true creativity or true knowledge actually gained by what they've received from the education. And we've seen a lot in recent times of professors coming out saying, you don't know, you don't want to learn this side of this. You don't want to learn about that side of things. And that is destructive stuff.
No, it's
absolutely destructive stuff.
And we're there now. You have students who are going to school that only want to know what's going to be on a test so they can ace the test. And it's like, man, it's not about the test. And now our entire educational system is based around making sure you can take tests and be quantified numerically. Like you got so many, it's not testing whether or not you've really understood the meaning of all of this. Like you say, why was this battle? Why did these things happen? And we now, I really think that part of the problem in the West that we have is we don't have free thinkers because our educational systems are so, especially in academia and colleges now, they're teaching only one, you can only believe this way. You know, you're here and you're going to this college, you have to think this way. And to me, like, that isn't education. That is indoctrination. And you need to be able to have read, if there's 4 different books on a subject, all coming at it from a different position, you should have read all 4 of those books. And then using your own critical acumen, take what you believe out of, well, whatever you want to take out of them all, but at least have a working knowledge of the other side of the belief system or where all of these things come from. And one of the things that I loved about The Prisoner as a kid, it made me want to delve into all kinds of issues, like things. I read Franz Kafka's The Trial because of this show. I read somewhere that, you know, it's very, we don't know what this character is on trial for. And I'm like, that sounds just like The Prisoner, you know, and it led me to other places and other things. And that there's a joy in that. There's a joy in this kind of learning.
Because recently, over the last, let's say 5 or so years, there was a lot of boycotting of speakers coming to universities as well. And why would they being boycotted? Because we don't agree with your opinion. Do you know the best way to understand somebody is to listen to them?
Absolutely.
They're not saying agree with me. They're saying this is what I believe. I want to discuss it with you. I want to open your mind. And that doesn't an open mind doesn't mean agreement per se.
No.
An open mind means that you are receptive to what you're being told, and then formulating your own opinion. I guarantee you 90+% of the people that are boycotting hadn't listened to them, hadn't actually understood what these speakers had to say, whether you agreed or disagreed with them. But as a younger person, as somebody that was in education, you are doing yourself a disservice not to listen. This is you are getting a gift here. You are getting a gift. You're getting a gift of a voice which might challenge your own reality, your own perception. And you can choose to accept that gift, listen, and then make a determination. Okay, I don't agree with certain aspects, but I understand what they mean now when they're coming from this angle. And you become a more rounded person with that. But when you're boycotting, saying, keep these people away from our universities, get them out of our universities, stop them from speaking, congratulations, you are a member of the village. You are somebody who has conformed. You are somebody who's been broken. You're not an individual. You're somebody who has had all of that removed from them. And you are now just a number in a crowd of numbers. It's scary.
When I was in high school, I had an honors level course taught by a woman named Carol Penke called Utopia. And it was we were looking at all these different ideas of what could be the perfect civilization throughout human history. And there were things we talked about, modern things like the Moonies, Reverend Sun Myung Moon. And like I picked Scientology. So what we would do, this is at a public high school. So I would have to do a presentation on Scientology. But then the next day, I brought in people from the Church of Scientology to talk to us. And we had some of the Moonies come in. And nowadays, I bet people would scream bloody murder if we did that. You can't bring these people in. But, you know, it was our job, and we tried to present an objective view. Okay, for me, I did Scientology because the book Battlefield Earth had recently come out, and I'd read it, and I'd learned all about L. Ron Hubbard being a golden age science fiction writer, and then creating through Scientology, through Dianetics and all that. I was fascinated by the whole thing. So I would do a presentation to the class the day before, and then the actual Scientologists would come in and speak, and we were very respectful, and everybody asked questions. And I'm like, I thought that's just the way the world would be. Like you go to college and you just have more classes like that. And I went to the Evergreen State College that had that big student uprising back in 2017, and Brett Weinstein, and I was appalled at what happened at Evergreen, because I'm like, wow, this Evergreen is, in the way, it's a small college, beautiful campus, but Evergreen, I even thought when I was there 30 plus years ago that it was kind of like the Village. It reminded me that, because it was this small enclave surrounded by trees. It wasn't it kind of was by the water, actually, but after seeing what happened there in 2017, because there was a student uprising. First of all, what the hell do students know? How do they know enough to be how are you uprising? You're having an uprising against your faculty? Like, why are you paying to go to college if you think that you know more than the faculty that's there? Like, didn't you want to go there to become taught by them?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Educate yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. And so nowadays I see what goes on. I'm like, wow, man, we were lucky to grow up in the time, because I took The Prisoner with me as I moved through my adolescence and went into high school and went into college, because The Prisoner first came out on VHS. Then I had the laser discs. Yeah. So it was something I was watching Prisoner episodes all the way through high school and college, and would show them to other people. And these were such important lessons that I feel all of them have been forgotten. We are living in a time where our entire society, like you said, is becoming the Village, is the Village. We're here, man. The cautionary, the questions that Patrick McGoohan raised in The Prisoner have not been heeded. And we are here now. And it's frankly terrifying to me.
Okay, we're an hour in, so let's open this up to the floor a little bit. We've got some super chats, so let's go through.
I can't believe we've been talking for an hour.
I could go forever.
I'm like, wait, what?
We could go for an hour now. This is crazy. It just feels like one sentence led to another sentence, led to another sentence, and that's just it. Just like, I don't know if we actually took a breath. But okay, so let's go through some of these. Lord Throth with 2 Canadian. Awesome. 2 of my favorite YouTubers. Classic talk show where there was an hour of non-stop talk right there. Shane O'Reilly with a €1 phallic unicorn. Thank you, Shane, for a phallic unicorn. Muggsykins with 5 Canadian. I have to confess, I'm drooling over your room, Robert. Smash the like button, folks, and show how much you love Robert's room. Free coffee included.
You should see. I've been renovating. It's pretty cool.
Well, I'm off to view a house tomorrow, which is going to be a lot more room. And if I can acquire it, then I'm going to get everything set up.
Yeah, I want to see more of your statues.
Oh, they're all over the. Oh,
yeah.
Oh. Sir. The Harry channel, he's got a penny farthing and a logo. So this is a Prisoner fan.
I love it.
With $10. Thanks for doing this. Now I don't have to make an inferior version on my tiny channel. The Prisoner had a big impact on the adult I am now, decades later.
Yeah.
I mean, once you watch The Prisoner, that's it. You are a Prisoner fan. You're hooked.
Right.
It's never going to leave you, and it shouldn't ever leave you, because the day it leaves you, you've lost your individuality. It was the day that The Prisoner has left you.
These days more than ever, I think the sovereign the sovereign individual is something that we need to preserve in all of us.
And when you have things like Twitter, who are banning people, you have Kickstarter, who gatekeep. You have YouTube, who have been removing, Patreon, who have been demonetizing, deplatforming. These are incredibly scary things.
Yeah,
because this is taking out, regardless of whether or not you agree or disagree with the voice. This is removing individuality and replacing it with conformity. And do you want to be a row of gaggling geese, or do you want to be the cock in the hen?
Well, it's so funny now. People are coming at me a lot on Twitter, going, "Do you know what this engineered virus is to do. It's to bring about the one world order, and we're supposed to just lock step in line and accept what's happening to us. And I'm like, I watched The Prisoner. I know what you're saying. It's exactly what we should be railing against. But there is also the realities of certain situations. I mean, as a person of science too, one of the great things about The Prisoner also is it does have a futuristic bent where science is a big part of. They use science to manipulate, and they use science, and they so you have to be very careful about the world we live in and the data that's being delivered, and what exactly are you being told, and how are you getting this information, and all of it. I mean, I'm not one of those people that I don't want to be an anarchist and tear down society, because I like society. I think I like, roads that are nicely paved, and I like hot and cold running water, and I like the infrastructure that we have, but I also like intellectual discourse. I also like where I can walk into an art gallery and see all kinds of different points of view from all different parts of the world. And I don't want to be told who is correct and who is incorrect, because I think good ideas eventually will win out. But, bad ideas are what shape culture too. And we need to be able to address all of these things.
Yeah, there was a few days ago, there's a video game came out a couple of weeks back called The Last of Us Part 2.
Oh, yes.
And it drew a lot of criticism on its story. And I've said all my pieces about that. But there was one of the voice actresses came out, and she'd received some terrible tweets, die, I'm gonna kill you, blah blah blah, all this sort of stuff, ridiculous stuff. She plays the most hated character in the game. Anybody with a brain cell can differentiate between an actor and a character. So even though you don't like the character in the game, doesn't mean that you dislike the voice actress. She's got nothing to do with it. She's doing a job.
Yeah.
So anyone with a brain cell can disavow any of this stuff. And then nobody has said, anyone from like YouTube or anyone has been going out there going, no, this is great. Everybody should send more death threats to these people, yada yada. No one does, because they all know it's stupid stuff. A journalist, a games journalist, I think it was from VGA 24/7, came out and said, these people that are saying these things to her are clearly coming from YouTube channels. We need to silence and deplatform and take the monetization away from these YouTube channels. A journalist. And I just said to myself, we are in the village.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me of that part in Free for All where he's in the front of the car and the journalist is in the back, and he's like, "What's your stance on the village exports?" And he's like, "No comment." And he's like, "We will continue to export to all corners of the globe." And then he just makes up his own answers.
Right.
Every time he says no comment, just makes his own answers up, because they're not listening. They're not wanting to hear. They're not wanting to listen to the arguments which people have had, the criticisms which people have levied about the game. All they're interested in is to get these people out of the way so that they can exist.
Right. And that's baked into the Prisoner's premise. And they do such a good job in the show of looking at these issues from many different angles. And a lot of the time, it's a little ambiguous. This show expects the audience to be very smart. That's what I love so much about it. It is not pandering. It is not dumbing things down. It expects that the audience is going to get it. And if they don't get it, we'll do the work to figure out what it all means. And I love that about this show.
2009 Prisoner, We're gonna do a surreal thing because they did a surreal thing in The Prisoner in 67. I'm never going to profess to understand everything that goes on in The Prisoner.
Nope.
It'd be very arrogant of me to suggest I understand everything. I can appreciate and understand some aspects for sure, but there's still, Fallout is a very difficult episode to understand.
Yep.
You try and put Fallout together. You try to explain Fallout to somebody. I dare you. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, that one, when we get to it. And even Once Upon a Time, it's a very difficult episode. There are definitely certain angles you can take with it, but for the layperson to come into that episode and watch it, they'd be bamboozled.
Yeah, you'd be completely lost.
Yeah, it's only years of discussion and research and looking that has enabled me to formulate any opinion of that
right.
episode. So yeah, I'm definitely not going to be arrogant enough to say I understand everything that goes on. Shadow Kings 101 with a $2 super chat. Have no idea what this topic is. Take my money. So right, a lot of people would think that with The Prisoner. There's a lot of stuff which was very difficult to understand. Federico Della Casa. There we go. I think you got it with €5. Hi guys, I just watched at the time an episode and reminded me of Jodorowsky's surrealism and Louis Benel deconstructionism of modern society. Jodorowsky, I would just imagine if he did do Dune, what his version of Dune would have been like.
I can only imagine. The holy mountain transported to Arrakis. I mean, it would have been. I would love to have seen that.
It would have been a beauty. It would have been a thing to behold. But my mind, I don't know if it could handle it. The Legion of Reason with 5 Canadian. Could you discuss the meaning of the final episode, Fallout? I've never felt I truly understood it. That's funny. We were just mentioning that. P.S. Favorite episode, Living in Harmony. Well, we're going to, from every 2 weeks, we're going to be coming back every 2 weeks, and we're going to be systematically going through the episodes and reviewing the episodes. So I think by the nature of this discussion, in a couple of weeks' time, we will have to go through Arrival.
By the way, Arrival, the first episode of The Prisoner, is on YouTube for free.
Yes.
Shout put it up. You can watch Arrival, and it's great, And
if you're a Prime member on Amazon Prime, there is the great documentary from 3 years ago, In My Mind, which was about an interview that they managed to snaggle with McGoohan back in '83. And the story around that, and I don't think there's any more thing interesting than watching a documentary about trying to get a documentary going.
Right.
I think they're just fascinating. Because this is 33 years later. No,
37 years later.
Yeah, 37 years later, and 34 because he came out in 2017. Yeah, 30 something years later, they just managed, they put it all together in a very interesting documentary about a documentary that was made. It's great stuff. But Fallout will be the final episode because that is the final. So we will go into Fallout.
Yeah.
And that will be an interesting discussion. A very interesting discussion. Because I don't know where it's quite going to go. This is interesting. Favorite episode, though, Robert? Do you have a favorite episode?
It's kind of hard because it's not like, you talk about Star Trek, you can think about Yesterday's Enterprise. I think of The Prisoner holistically. Like, okay. I know what you mean. Yeah. I see it as different chapters of a book.
Yes.
I mean, I would obviously, like, I think one of the most enjoyable episodes for a layperson is The Chimes of Big Ben, because it is very satisfying, and it's got but to me it encompasses so much that I hate to show people that. I wish people would wait and watch that toward the end.
Yes. But I almost feel like we probably need to thrash out what we think is the true order of the 17 episodes.
Right.
And maybe do it like that. That's what I don't know. Throwing this out there to you now. What do you think?
I just don't like that The Chimes of Big Ben is the second episode, because I think it really diminishes. If you've already watched it, it diminishes the joys of the rest of the series.
Yeah, and I don't like the fact that Dance of the Dead is so far back when it should be 2 or 3 at the very least, but probably number 2. So maybe
although I do love Free for All.
Free for All is I reckon it should go Arrival, Dance of the Dead, Free for All. That's how I think it should go, and then maybe ABC. But I think those are the first 3 episodes to me, very much so.
Yeah.
Whether you go Arrival, Free for All, Dance of the Dead, I could accept, but I don't think those are the first 3 episodes for sure,
right?
Without doubt. But yeah, like I said, maybe we'll chuck our orders against each other and see what we think.
Yeah, that's yes.
And then see how we go. But it will be definitely Arrival to start with, because that is absolutely
you have to start with Arrival.
I know what you mean. I do kind of view the series as chapters myself. There are certain episodes I do get a lot of pleasure from,
right?
Mainly because of either the directing or the structure. Many Happy Returns to me is one of the cleverest put together episodes.
Yeah, that's a great episode.
It works on so many different levels, which we'll get to. But that is an amazing level. But Arrival is, I think, possibly the greatest first episode of a show ever.
Well, it also sets everything up, and it's again, I just watched it, and it's so much fun to watch.
Yes,
and we were talking about before we went on about being an editor myself, a film editor. I love the editorial style of the opening, how the use of jump cuts. Now we see jump cuts all the time, especially with YouTubers, the way people cut their own shows, because, you're looking right into a camera. It's a lot of jump cutting. So people are now used to it. But at the time, the use of jump cuts in the whole opening sequence, and like when he's running up the stairs to get up to the clock, or not the clock tower, but the bell tower or whatever.
The bell tower, yeah.
The bell tower when he's running up. The use of that is pretty innovative, and it's not something you'd see on television a lot. And we were talking about the fact that Peter Hunt, the director of the James Bond movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he had been an editor that transitioned into directing, and he, in '69, when The Prisoner had come on the air, he was probably prepping On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I've always wondered, was Peter Hunt influenced by some of the editorial choices that they made on The Prisoner? Because I'm sure it was all feeding off one another, But
I think the jump cuts, in particularly the first episode, very much allowed you to feel that sense of disorientation.
Yes,
with the way that he had arrived at the village, everything was disorientating. You're like, Jack, here, there, everywhere. What's going on? Who's there? Why are you doing this? And I think it fed into that. A lot of jump cuts with him and number 2 as well, when he goes to see number 2.
Yeah, like even the whole breakfast thing we talked about earlier. But then when they're showing him the surveillance footage of him looking around and all that, and over there, is he there?
Yeah.
And all that. It's really, really well done, and it makes it The Prisoner. There's also, people say, oh, it's like Austin Powers now, but The Prisoner, it was mod too. It was definitely it had that mod sensibility, that late '60s.
Oh yeah.
And you saw elements of that, whether it was in the movie Antonioni's Blow Up, or whether it was in Modesty Blaze, or anything to do with swinging London, or I love that whole. I would love to have been in London in the late '60s. I would love to have been there.
It would have been a great time, yeah.
And been a part of that whole scene, man. I've always been a fan of, now everybody laughs at it because they just think Austin Powers. But no, there was some great stuff going on.
No, it was the swinging '60s, and London was the place to be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
God, the music scene, the art scene, it would have been great.
But even with
there's
Mrs.
a bit of
Butterworth,
that. Yes.
she's very much chic. The girl who was death, again, there's a lot of chic, very kind of 60s, swinging 60s, faster pussycat, faster kill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's
attitude to it all.
Absolutely. And that's another thing that I think that the show has that appeal. It has, I mean, that the surveillance room, and the 2 guys are on the futuristic seesaw spinning around, they're looking at everyone.
Yeah.
There's the set design of that was another thing, that whatever the cabal is that is holding him there, is it like Spectre?
Well, did you ever see the the drawings?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. Yeah,
they were very much like whatchamajiggy from Star Wars. his sort of illustrations of
Ralph McQuarrie.
Ralph McQuarrie's. Yeah, they
Yeah.
very much kind of have that same
Yeah.
feel to them about obviously you got practicality, but yeah, these were like huge domes on the inside, and
yeah, I mean, it
the
was
inside of the town hall and stuff. Oh my goodness,
it's always very interesting. Like, one of the things that I always wondered, like, say in a Bond movie like Moonraker, you know, Hugo Drax has this gigantic launch site where he's launching space shuttles out of the Amazon, and you're like, who built this? How did Hugo Drax get a space shuttle into the Amazon? Who built this gigantic base? How did they even get equipment in there?
This would have taken 40 years to make.
Well, yeah, and it's I've always loved that. I've always glossed by that, but I always sort of smile on the inside watching things like that. And when I think about The Prisoner and The Village, I'm like, what? Like, no one flew over when they were building this? I mean, this massive construction crew, and where does Rover come from, and where's the surveillance equipment? I mean, it was
I think that's dealt with very well in Many Happy Returns.
Well, it's
when
true.
They're doing the sweeps, and when you see it from above, and it's just like, I get it, you know, I sort of get it. It almost assimilates into the scenery.
You have
to, but it kind of makes that argument. To see something, you have to specifically look.
Yeah, you're right. Hiding in plain sight. And yeah, absolutely.
I'd say Rival and Many Happy Returns for different reasons, though. But I don't think there's an episode I don't like.
Right? No, there isn't one I don't like either.
Yeah, it's just they all work. Like, some don't have the production values because they only had access to Port Marion for a very specific amount of time, and so you have the sunny Port Marion when they managed to get there in the spring, and then you see the rainy Port Marion when they managed to get back for 2 weeks to do some recording back in October or something. So you have two very different Port Marions, and then it's the MGM studio,
right?
Where they try and recreate some sets. So yes, sometimes those sets look very dated now, and they don't look great now. But it's the writing which carries the show, and it doesn't diminish from the stories. That's why not at all. A 53-year-old show now.
I mean, it's still a TV show. You know, we're talking about it like it was brought down from the mountain by God himself. Moses with the holy 17 episodes.
Yeah.
Here they are.
Arrival. Okay. So they had their limitations, but it was great. Oh man. Man of War 665 with 2 US. Few of us have been awake as opposed to woke. I think there's a difference between being woke and awake. I think there's very different. They used to it's very funny because up until the early part of the teens, the 2000 teens, if you were woke, it meant you knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And now look what it means. The latter half going into 20s, you're woke. It means you're a sheep. Essentially, you're a sheep.
Yes.
So look how its meaning has changed. Mark C with 10 US, not saying it should be a threesome, but I do know for a fact that a certain overlord believes The Prisoner is the greatest TV show ever made. Hail Doomcock. Yeah, I've been made aware that Doomcock is a massive fan of The Prisoner. Massive fan of Prisoner. I know, if we have a wrap-up show, maybe get a couple of people in for a wrap-up show.
Round table.
Yeah, at the end, after we've been through it, that could be interesting. Drake is 6 with 10 US. You cannot overlook the fact Patrick, all his life, felt he never fit in because being Catholic and a US citizen in the UK, but spent time in sorry, hold on, let's get this together right. You cannot overlook the fact Patrick, all his life, felt he never fit in being Catholic and as a US citizen in the UK, but spent too much time in the UK to feel he was American. Alienation is a theme in The Prisoner. Well, he was American Irish, wasn't he?
Yeah.
By birth. American Irish by birth. But yeah, spent a huge amount of time in the UK. if you listen to him offset, he kind of had an Irish tinge to his voice.
Yes, he did.
Very much had an Irish tinge, not an American twinge, and not a British, not a typical British accent.
I also think his voice is definitely part of the appeal of his. I love his voice.
Nobody speaks like Patrick McGoohan.
No, and he was in other things that I really like. Like there's a movie called Ice Station Zebra.
Ice Station Zebra. That's
that he's in, and I love Ice Station Zebra. Sorry, go on. Somebody told me that's Howard Hughes's favorite film, and he used to watch it over and over and over again. But I love Ice Station Zebra is another great Cold War 60s spy thriller drama that I love. And of course, he was in David Cronenberg's Scanners, which I always thought was such a strange thing, but he's good in it. The movies.
But then Cronenberg and McGoohan, you kind of think, actually, that kind of works.
Yeah. Totally,
it really kind of works.
And then, of course, everyone knows him from Braveheart. But it's. I don't think he ever had the career he should have.
I don't know if he wanted the career he should have had.
Yeah, you might
this
be right about
this
that.
is just it. This is a guy that turned down Bond because he didn't want to go mainstream.
Right,
he wanted to do the different things, and because of Ice Station Zebra, that's why we got "Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling."
Mm-hmm.
Because they needed to replace him. Because he needed to get out and film Ice Station Zebra.
Yeah.
So they replaced him with the Colonel or whatever, the Major or the Colonel, whatever it was. And then he makes just this very brief appearance at the end of the episode when everything goes a bit Pete Tong for the other guys. But that was another episode about not him escaping, but him subverting and the other guy subverting. And but yes, that would probably be my least favorite episode, even though I didn't dislike it. I didn't dislike it, but you could see why they did it, and you're like,
yeah, it's compromised.
It's a compromise. Yeah, it's a compromised episode. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, actually. But it's still a decent episode. It's still a decent episode. It beats a lot of trash on TV now, I'll tell you that. Calf Tron with 2 American. Brilliant series. Very important discussion. Thank you. It's just a wonderful discussion to have. Jay Fraser 360 with £5. Hail as an RMB. Have either of you listened to Big Finish? It mostly remakes, but also adapts some old unused scripts. Be seeing you, gents.
Yeah, the audio dramas. And I listened to part of one. I have it on my computer. I was going to listen to that and bring that up, but I have not. I need to sit down and listen to what they were doing.
Yeah,
but I hear they're great.
The rejected scripts, yeah. I know of at least 3 rejected scripts.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see what they would have turned out like, because obviously McGoohan had it didn't necessarily have to be quality. He had a very specific idea of what was going on, and the later the series developed, the more control he got of everything.
Right.
He was writer, director, executive producer. He was writing under fake names for episodes.
Yeah.
Joseph Surf and stuff like that, and Paddy something, and just all these different names. But he certainly had way more control. Maybe that was because George Markenstein had gone by then. But I mean, he had David Tomlin, and my God, that is.
Look at Tomlin's credits and what he ended up going to do. It's amazing.
This guy is well, he would forever be known as like one of the greatest producers of cinema, never mind television.
Right.
But he had him all through Danger Man, then he had him through The Prisoner, then he goes off and he's got, all these amazing credits. Empire Strikes Back and stuff like that under his belt. Oh my God. Just go on IMDb, look at David Tomlin's list, and my God, it's you'd be amazed. Muggsy Kins again with two Canadian. All 17 episodes of The Prisoner are on iTunes as well. There you go. So you get them iTunes, Amazon Prime. They're up there as well.
And by the way, they did ITV, I guess, paid for it, but I don't know, almost 10 years ago, they did a restoration of the show. They went back in and made high definition transfers. They are gorgeous. You know, I have the Blu-ray.
I got the Blu-rays,
Yeah, the Blu-ray. They're just absolutely stunning. What they did for Space 1999 and UFO and The Prisoner and so good.
Well, without jumping the gun, if this goes well and you're happy to do some more after The Prisoner, we'll probably have to look at another little gem to have a squee at, because there are just so many like that around that era, the cult television shows of those times.
The other one, I'm looking, I don't know where I put it. The other show that I've always thought of in tandem with this is UFO, is Jerry Anderson's UFO.
UFO, yeah.
And there was a couple of really interesting episodes of UFO that has Prisoner-esque qualities to them, but I think UFO has a very adult bent to it. And I both was it ITC with, they had the ITC logo in the front of them, but now it's owned by ITV. But the UFO was 69 to 71, and then this started in 67. And there's kind of a design sensibility. There's a little spillover. I always believed that The Prisoner and UFO are set in the same universe as a kid, because I love them both.
I get it. I get what you mean.
You know, and I just, because I
but it's like with the Danger Man, you had Bond, Danger Man, Man in a Suitcase,
right?
Man from U.N.C.L.E. You had all these, you had all these shows, which to me be like, they're all in the same universe.
Yeah, and they're all
existing together.
Yeah, and Wild Wild West. I don't know if you ever watched that. That was an American show that was a Western that had sci-fi elements. That was all part of it too. That was all part of the same continuum. But the thing about UFO is, I saw UFO when I was younger, but it also was very mind-blowing to me, certain episodes of that show, because it was so dark and fatalistic, and it had there's an episode called The Question of Priorities that I still can't believe even got made, because it's the ending is so dark. But the Prisoner, I don't know, those British import shows between UFO, Space 1999. I saw The Prisoner later, even though it was made before UFO and Space 1999. I couldn't see them. Yeah. And there was some sensibility going on. And I know with Jerry Anderson with UFO and Space 1999, but there was something I love this British feel, because it was so different than American television. I mean, what I'd seen The Prisoner, and that was right after I'd watched America. We got Buck Rogers in the 25th Century and Battlestar Galactica. And I'm like, this was not exactly satisfying my thoughtful sci-fi itch as I moved into my adolescence.
America's going through its camp phase. Even from Batman, everything was camp.
Yes.
Batman was camp, Buck Rogers is camp, Battlestar Galactica is camp. And it does serve a purpose, it's got a slot, but then as you're older, you appreciate, you get the reimagining of Battlestar Galactica, and you're just like, this is great.
But see, that really to me, the reimagining of Battlestar Galactica was where British sci-fi shows were in the 60s and 70s.
Yes. Oh yeah. But it's just like, at least it spawned a new creative direction at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
You can't. I don't think you can get The Prisoner right today, because you're missing the biggest ingredient, and that's Patrick McGoohan's mind.
Right. I mean, I mean, it is the product of the same way I think a lot of the shows, Star Trek in the 60s was a product of Roddenberry, and then Rod Serling with the Twilight Zone. I mean, Rod Serling did bring other writers like Charles Beaumont and Richard Matheson in, but it really, what he wanted to do, you had these strong creative personalities that by the way, I think is missing from a lot of our entertainment now. Our entertainment now is so, I mean, I understand how corporations work, but I think a lot of the best entertainment is that comes from somebody who has a strong sense of authorship. And the funny thing is, I don't care about where that's coming from. I will watch movies, whether it's a female director, a male director, a person of color, LGBTQ. I don't care who is making these shows. What I want is a sense of authorship, and I want a sense of vision, so I know that when I'm watching something, I'm really getting something that has been mulled over and thought about by its creator.
Absolutely. And now
I
we're going into a segregist sort of attitude with this. Instead of just saying, look, this person is creative just based off the fact that they are a creative person. It doesn't matter that they're gay. It doesn't matter that they're black. It doesn't matter that they're a woman. You know, this person is the best person for the job, and we can give them fucking Batman for all I care. You know, their vision of it would be immense. Yeah. Now we're saying, oh no, this film's about women, so we've got to have a female director. This is the black bat people. We've got to have a black director. It's going in the wrong direction.
No, it is, and what I want, it's just. I mean, I understand it's born out. Look, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I understand.
I don't know if these intentions are good though.
No, that's what I mean. Everybody wants, you know, voices we haven't heard to tell us stories, which is what I want to do. I want to hear it, but what I always say is,
but why does it exclude black people from just doing regular stuff, or a woman from doing regular stuff?
No, we shouldn't.
And this is it. They're now saying, oh, you're the black person, so you can only do the black stuff. You're a woman, you can only do the female stuff. No. If they're of the talent, they should be doing whatever they are talented for.
That's what I want. I mean, I always say on my own show on Robservations, you cannot put an agenda before characters and story. And Patrick McGoohan had so much going on. Can you imagine if someone said, you're just an actor? Like, what do you know about writing a show? And if nowadays in this day and age, if somebody like Patrick McGoohan went in to try and create this show, he wouldn't be able to do it. You know, it wouldn't have happened. And I think that people would tell you what couldn't. That's not interesting. And now, what I would give for a Star Trek series that had a visionary like Patrick McGoohan behind it. You know, if you could, because that's what
any show, to be honest with you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that one
soap opera with Patrick McGoohan's idea.
I mean, anything, as long as you have a strong visionary voice behind it. That's what I really love. And I think one of the reasons this show endures is because his particular predilection for these subjects, and putting them together in the way he did, it was all born out of his personality and what worried him and what he was interested in and how he felt about humanity and all of that. It all gelled together in such a way that it was such a heady, frothy mix of intellectualism and entertainment.
And now we're just getting conveyor belt Marvel. And you know, that's not disrespect to people that like the Marvel films, but there is a formula. Right. And all of the films, whether you enjoy them or you don't enjoy them, they have the same feel for everything. It's almost like the same beat in every one of these films. You don't feel a sense of true originality. And the only time that I felt a true kind of break in the Marvel movies, for example, is when we got the Russo brothers coming in for Winter Soldier.
You know what?
And then Winter Soldier's like, bang.
I was just going to say that. I mean, it's amazing. One of the things I admire about Kevin Feige is, who would have thought there's no other studio, Warner Brothers, Universal, Fox, when it existed, none of them would have hired the Russo brothers to direct a studio tentpole. For whatever reason, Kevin Feige saw something, whether the Russo brothers were directing television or whatever, he sees this thing about talent. He goes, okay, guys, come and I'm gonna pluck you out of what you're doing, and you're gonna direct the second Captain America movie, and you guys go to town, and it's all gonna be about surveillance culture and corruption in the government. And I mean, that movie has a lot. It is like a 70s political thriller.
Yeah, I love it. It feels like an espionage thriller to me.
And it really
separates itself from the rest.
It doesn't soft pedal those issues at all.
No.
And it really gets into some really heady stuff, and it's like, okay, I mean, still, you know, I'm a fan of the Marvel movies. I grew up as a comic book reader, and like I love Infinity War and Endgame because I can't even believe they exist. But when I go back and I look at something, like you said, the Marvel films are formulaic, which I understand. But when you get a Civil War in the midst of all that, or I mean, and Winter Soldier in the midst of all that, I'm like, that's impressive. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
Look, as a comic book fan, I'm surrounded by all kinds of comic book material, which I love. But in the MCU, I am surprised at how he's threaded a needle there. Because again, you do have Feige, who is a fan of a lot of things, and he's you know what I love about the Marvel Cinematic Universe? By design, it's what he wanted it to be. So I feel that, and sometimes, like when movies don't work as well, like say Captain Marvel, I didn't think work as well as some other things, but then you do get the first Guardians of the Galaxy and Winter Soldier, which I thought those are, you look at those, and even you go back and you watch the first Iron Man. The first Iron Man, people forget how it's an intimate story. It's really the story
before the Disney machine, though.
Right, that was made before and that's the real problem is great entertainment. Corporate interests are diametrically opposed to great storytelling.
Yes,
because they, by definition, they want to define the storytelling because they have to appeal to the widest possible, the widest possible spread of people and the lowest common denominator. So it's an enemy of great storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, this is why Lou Grade was so incredible, because they said, "How do you control somebody like McGoohan?" And he said, "It's easy. I just let him do what he wants."
Right. Well, what's funny is you think that at the end, no real great money has ever been made following trends in Hollywood. It's always been the people that set those trends or buck the trends. Like Coppola was worried about being fired every single day making The Godfather. Same with Spielberg, David Brown just told Spielberg, look, just keep shooting, when they were making Jaws, because they were so over budget and everything. No, just keep shooting. And you look at the one thing, say the Star Wars movies, was there was no creative visionary overseeing. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy, who I admire, but she's a producer, she's a facilitator, she's a true producer. She gives her visionaries what they need, or work with visionaries. And Star Wars was only overseen by corporate interests, and it's too bad. But when you allow people to do things, I mean, Feige's figured out a way to work with producers and he works with directors, and there's a synergy there for the most part. But imagine if you allowed, like recently, Devs. Did you watch Devs? The show Devs that Alex Garland did, who did Ex Machina and Annihilation. Devs was, while not
Ex
perfect,
Machina is incredible.
Yeah, and Alex Garland wrote and directed that. He wrote and directed Devs, which was an 8-part series that was here in America. You got it. You would love it. You would love it. And it's all about, I don't want to tell you what it's about. You should go into it. You should go into it cold. But it's visionary creators, as long as they're not breaking the bank. Yeah, we would have a much better entertainment landscape if visionary creators were allowed to do what they wanted to do. We would get a lot more interesting programming. And if you look at all the great stuff that we get, whether it's Breaking Bad or it's usually, there's a few people at the top that make sure these things turn out well. And Patrick McGoohan, I mean, this is such the vision of one man. I mean, yeah, he had collaborators, obviously. But man, and wouldn't you rather, I would much rather watch a creative visionary attempt to do something like The Prisoner and not quite get there than half the stuff we get today.
Oh, absolutely. Amen. Absolutely,
the ambition of this show is enormous.
Yes. And if we had television, like, I mean, I don't want to get too heady, but I don't think you'd be able to do something like that nowadays from the British perspective, because you wouldn't be able to, the BBC wouldn't do anything with it because they're too partisan. Because the BBC would want, we'd have to have it'd have to come from this angle and that angle. And that's the problem with modern day. Everyone will be saying, well, this is the angle it's got to come from.
Right.
And that was the whole point of The Prisoner. This was, and we go back to the individual. And that was the most important aspect of the show, was the individual and the individual. Because if you look at the character of The Prisoner, he's not massively likable in as much as he doesn't do he doesn't like exhibit crazy amounts of charm or crack jokes all the time, or chat up women. He's a very earnest guy, and he's a very stern guy for the most of it, and a very angry guy for the most of it.
Yeah.
But he's so likable, and you want him to succeed because you can recognize it's an individual's fight against the system.
He's fighting. He's a proxy for all of us.
Mm.
We all are prisoners in our own worlds, our own lives.
Yeah.
Whether it's your family life, whether it's your circumstance, your economics, whatever you are, we are all prisoners. And that's what I love about the show, is that we're all fighting for that individuality. We're all railing against the dying of the light, and that's what he's doing here. And I think that anybody who really, first of all, we should say that this show does require an attention span.
Oh, yeah.
It is, the pacing of it is different than what we're used to. And there are certain techniques. I mean, it is a 53-year-old show now. And when people, I would implore people, I always tell people that you need to sit down and you need to bring something. You've got to work. This show requires you to do a little bit of work. And I would ask people to sit down and do that work, because I think it's very gratifying.
Yeah, it's like they're chucking jigsaw pieces at you, but you've got to put them together.
Yes.
They're gonna give you what you need for the most part, and you've got to put them together. And if all the pieces aren't there, then you've got to work out what the picture is.
Yes.
Based off what they've given you, and that allows you, it fuels your mind, it fuels your creativity.
Absolutely.
That's why I say, I would be arrogant to say understood everything that goes on. No way.
Right.
No way. But I can understand a lot of it, or I can see the picture, even if I don't get every single piece or why it goes there. But that's the beauty. That's the beauty of the show.
Yes.
Drake is 6 with a $5 super chat. Have you seen the prison documentary In My Mind? It is a must watch on Amazon, with interviews with Patrick on The Prisoner for the anniversary TV show. That's the documentary in 2017 one. And it's up for anyone who is an Amazon Prime subscriber. It's free to watch if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber. I thoroughly recommend it. It's a great watch. Rob Altis with 5, American even. Great stream and chat. Love this. I gotta watch this show. You do. You absolutely do.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Mark C with $5 super chat. There is an amazing comic book of The Prisoner. It happens to have been drawn by the King, Jack Kirby. Yeah, Gary from Nerdrotics got it.
Yeah. And I have
the miniseries, the 4-part miniseries.
Yeah, I do too. I liked it. The DC
miniseries. Fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was fine. I got it. I recently picked it back up with all this going on. I've yet to reread it, but I remember reading it first time, and it's fine. It was all right.
I also have this.
Boom.
Yeah, these novelizations. It's pretty. I got to go. I read this a long time ago, but I've been going through the Robservatory, going through all these things that I have, and found that
I'll dig it out for the next show. But in one of my boxes packed away, I've got the 1992 or whenever it was Channel 4 Prisoner thing book.
Yeah,
and it's a beaut, that
the
one.
hardcover one.
It's soft cover. It's soft cover.
Oh, I've got a hardcover.
But it's got the checkmate. He's in the outfit from Check. Is it Checkmate? Yeah, from Checkmate.
Yeah.
Where he's holding the pawn and he's got the cowl draped over his one shoulder. God, that's such an iconic look. We haven't even touched upon. We're running out of time because we said we're going to put a 2-hour limit on this, folks, and that is it. But we haven't even discussed the amazing wardrobe.
Oh,
the fashion with it.
And I got to thank you for the this painting that you had done. This illustration of you and I, you as number 6 and me as number. This is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to get a poster of that.
Yeah, so I gave it. So I put it in the message for you because
it's fantastic.
Download it. Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, but I commissioned this. Wonderful guy, Perry Chan. He does stuff for Friday Night Tights. and he's incredible. And he said, right, here's an outline of the image I'm going for. What do you think? I was like, this looks great. And then he did this, and it's just like, oh, you're a genius.
Yeah.
Just a genius. So I thought use the number two. Number two there, Robert.
Yep.
Calftron with 2 American. Hashtag the village. Hashtag you are a number. I am not a number. I'm a free
I'm a
man.
free man.
Bamagrad with 8 American. It may have been slightly naive, but I assumed it was number 6's training and conditioning that enabled him to keep his sense of identity, self-worth. I don't think anything relating to spy work or anything came into the show at all. This was all about the man. This was the man against the machine. To me, this was he was almost elemental in his single-mindedness, and that's why when we see parts of the show where he is drugged or he's coerced because of manipulation, you're like, we lost the prisoner,
right?
You know, you kind of go, and then when he turns around at the end, and he's just like, we got the man back. So yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with his training. I think it was all about the individual, the man who refuses to conform to societal desires or demands, I should really say. James Andrews with a $5 super chat. No message, but a $5 super chat. So thank you, James Andrews. Stubble McShave with a 50 Swedish krona. I saw One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There's similarities between Nurse Ratched with today's cancel culture. She had good intentions. I never remember Nurse Ratched having good intentions.
Well, no, I think she does. I think that it's just she's so set in her ways. Like,
yeah,
you know, in a way, R.P. McCready and Nurse Ratched is like she represents the village. You know, McReady, R.P. McMurphy. Rick Reedy is the character from The Thing. R.P. McMurphy is the character from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know, it's a battle of wills. It's a battle of wills where she's so set in her ways and the way that the administration has told us to run this hospital. You have to do it the way I say. And he's like, come on, why do we have to do it that way? You know, it's so I could see that. I could see that.
You change your mind though. You get your lobotomy at the end.
Right. Well, that's at the end you're done. I mean.
And then you rip out a sink and run away. The BS is real with a 2 US super chat. Checking in on my favorite Istophobe. Hi. Bunyan Snipe with 2 British. The full annotated Dune script is online. Oh my lord. There you go. Take a 610 with $2 super chat. How did you get Frank Conniff on your channel? I don't even know who Frank Conniff is, so I can't see. Let me see the joke. Get out of here! Robert's a beautiful man, absolutely beautiful. How dare you, sir? How dare you? Where's Moody Webcast with 2 American? R.I.P. Grant Imahara. Thoughts on Star Trek Continues?
He passed away.
49.
Yeah, he was I met him twice. What a nice guy.
Was
such a nice guy.
I never watched that stuff, so unfortunately, not in a unfeeling kind of a way. I never saw his stuff, so
he was on a show called Mythbusters that was so much fun. There's a lot of fun. You'll get a kick out of it. There's some really fun stuff in there.
But it's like loads of people just dropping at the moment. It's like
I know.
I don't know what's going on. Star Trek Continues. Look, as long as Kurtzman's involved, it's going to be a disaster.
That was the fan film series. He played Sulu in Star Trek Continues. It's actually.
I thought I was thinking of Beyond.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, Star Trek Continues. Of all the Star Trek fan shows, it's by far, I think, the best.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought you were referring to the new one with Pike upcoming.
Yeah.
Which, hey, it's going to be more episodic and fun. Oh, shut up. No, it's not. You're just gonna no. You're gonna have Spock punching everything, every show. Phil Moore with 5 American. When the axe drops with the YouTube purging, have you given any thought to where you'll go or what you'll do? Yeah, I'm gonna do tricks on the street corner. Bunyan Snipe with £5. I believe Lou Gray decided that Chimes of Big Ben was episode 2 for commercial reasons.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay. Definitely doesn't canonically fit there though.
Yeah.
Grey Ghost, like I said, we'll put together our lists. There's our homework.
Right.
I'll send you my 17, what I think is the chronological order of my 17, and then you do yours, and we'll see if the twain shall meet.
Yes.
Grey Ghost with 10 US. The VGA 24/7 writer advocating on Twitter for YouTube reactionaries to be deplatformed is the same author of VGA's 24/7's Last of Us 2 review, which he calls a masterpiece. The review says their copy was provided by Sony. Yeah, this is when you conform to your masters, when you become a member of the village and not an individual, then you call out the unmutuals. Unmutual! Unmutual! And then you are shunned. This is cancel. Oh, I can't wait to discuss that with today's cancel culture now. Julius Goodwin with $20 super chat. No message, just a $20 super chat. Thank you, Julius.
He's a very generous man.
Oh, he's no. I hate it when there's no message because I want to engage when somebody does that with a super chat. So, thank you very much indeed, sir. Stetson's Gold with a £5 super chat. It's pronounced Meyer, not Mayor. Great show, by the way. Okay.
My middle name, Meyer.
Meyer.
Fine. Yeah.
Not Mayer. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Robert Meyer Burnett. Sorry, that's a British.
It's funny because I tell people this all the time, but I only use my middle name professionally because I had to. Like the first time I was ever credited for something, they're like, well, there's already a Rob Burnett. Because when you have credit in Hollywood, it has to be vetted. And they're like, can you say something else? Because there was a Rob Burnett that produced The Late Show for David Letterman here in the States. And I said, well, I'll use my middle name. And I think it always sounds kind of pretentious, but now everybody knows me as Robert Meyer Burnett. I'm like, just call me Rob. You know?
I'll have to get used to the Mike because it's just it's like Mia and Maya.
Oh yeah, well it's the difference between it's across the pond. We say things differently.
But it's your name, and I need to respect the proper pronunciation.
You can just say Rob Burnett. That's all.
Burnett. There you go.
Because I just go by Robert Meyer Burnett as a credit thing, people. So the other Rob Burnett, who's much richer and more successful than me,
doesn't get confused.
Yeah.
Bunyan Snipe with another £5 super chat. His family moved to Ireland shortly after his birth. Yes, Irish American. Eskimano Phono with a $2 super chat. Hey, good sirs. Hope you've got enough sleep. I got enough sleep. Thank you. Crazy Cat Guy with a $5 super chat. During my deployment to CFS Alert, Ice Station Zebra was the most popular movie on the station's TV system. It aired 3 to 4 times a week during my tour.
Oh, man.
Awesome. Steve Carter with a £2 super chat. Purely to hopefully get more after Prisoner. I think he's thinking about maybe more shows. We'll see. Then we've got, because we're up on time, we will be calling time at the bar, people. Equality 72521 with a $10 super chat. DC did a 6-issue miniseries called Shattered Visage in 88-89. Each issued was approved by McGoohan himself. Explained who number one really was. What number one was to me is your doppelganger. It's your evil. It's your evil, part of you. It's the side which wants to give in. It's the side which wants to have, it was. I never saw number one being anyone but McGoohan in the show. I could never see it being anyone but him.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
But yeah, no, I agree. I agree that's what that is. I mean, if he had given in, if he had been broken.
Yeah, that was a broken prisoner. That was the man that. Yeah, but again, to be discussed. Eskimo doesn't take anything away from the show. Folks.
No.
Eskimo Phono with a £2 super chat, $2 super chat. Toss a coin to the 2 awesome mods. Yes, my beautiful ladies. We've got Purple Valkyrie and Vanessa Law as my mods. They are spectacular. Def81 with a £2 super chat. I love Captain Scarlet. Pretty dark for a kids show. Captain Scarlet it was amazing.
Huge fan. I'm a huge fan.
Absolutely amazing. I love Captain Scarlet. Very dark. The whole Captain Black stuff at the beginning was terrifying for a child.
Yep.
But yeah, wonderful show. I actually started looking at trying to get some Captain Scarlet merch recently.
Well, there's some good stuff out there too. I
can't find anything really decent though.
There's one.
The nice six.
Yeah,
they're nice.
Do you know there's a company called 1612, and they spell 16 out in the number 12. All they're doing is Jerry Anderson merchandise. So they're doing like I just got sent. They're doing. They used to be Product Enterprises that did the Eagles in the mid-aughts, and now they're doing I just got a shipping notice. They're sending me the 2-pack of the Rescue Eagle and the Caldorian Christopher Lee's spaceship from the episode Earthbound. It comes in as a 2-pack. And they're doing Space 1999 action figures. And they're, I really want a great 12-inch, a 6-scale figure of Patrick McGoohan.
Yes. Why? Sideshow. Why?
I don't know why no one has ever made a great Patrick McGoohan figure with his likeness, and I guess now to go out and get a license, it would be cost prohibitive because not enough people would buy it. Your own Big Chief in the UK was going to do a Russell Crowe figure from Gladiator. And then they canceled it. I'm like, what? Did you not get enough pre-orders? I wanted that figure so bad.
I tell you what, if they put up a pre-order for a 1-in-6 McGoohan prisoner, it would sell like hotcakes.
Well, that's I'm surprised that Big Chief of all. I mean, they're doing all the Doctor Who's.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to them. I'm gonna have words.
Yeah, give him a call, man.
This has got to happen. I'm gonna get
put a sound chip in it where he can say all the great catchphrases.
Yeah, but you could have him in his black outfit, and then you could have him in his prisoner outfit.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to bundle them both together for interchangeable. But I would personally have 2 separate ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
And double down on your cash. Because I'd buy both. Everyone would buy both. Everyone would. The Lash with 20 Danish Corona. Have you watched Fragility 2001? Good movie. Frailty, 2001. Frailty.
I have that. Bill Paxton directed that.
Oh,
he directed that film. It's good. My ex-wife actually designed the video packaging for that home video release for Lionsgate.
There you go.
Yeah.
By the way, I have McGoohan eyes.
You do. You've got Stanley Kubrick eyes too. That look, yeah, you can do. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Statesman Well with $3 super chat because Tan Staffel.
There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. That's what that's an acronym for.
Ah, okay, there you go. Okay.
Actually, there really ain't no. Is there really ain't no such thing as a free lunch?
No.
Or there ain't. I think it's there really ain't no such thing. No, it's Tans. Yeah, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
I'm being learnt. Michael Beacon with 5 American dollars. He tells us who number 1 is in the beginning narration. Just add a comma. You are number 6.
Who is number 1?
Who is number 1? Oh, yeah, okay. I see what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
And battle him with $2 super chat. Movie recommendations, The Last Detail. It's not sci-fi.
That's I have that. That's Jack Nicholson. It was directed by Bob Rafelson.
I remember one in 6 scale Danger Man, Bunny and Snipe, £2. I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah. Then you can make a prisoner figure from that.
Then you can, then I will make one.
Yeah.
Right, folks. We're at the 2-hour mark. We said we'd keep this to a 2-hour show. We're only 5 minutes over, so I'm actually pretty happy. Robert, 2 weeks' time.
This was so great.
Oh, it was the best.
This was great.
We're going to do Arrival. Start with Arrival on your channel 2 weeks' time.
We'll do Arrival. I'm looking forward to it. Because
there's a lot. Although we had to touch upon Arrival to discuss some things today, Arrival is its own entity.
It's its own entity. Yep.
So it deserves. And then we'll decide. I guess we'll decide on the chronological order we're going to go with.
Yeah, that would be okay. That's interesting. We should pick a chronological. That's really I like that.
And then we'll tell you what episode to watch for the next show. But we're bouncing between channels. So in 2 weeks' time, it's going to be on Robert's channel. So I hope everyone that's turned up today is going to turn up there. I'm going to make sure that you do. I'm going to drag you there, kicking and screaming.
Yeah, you can find my channel's The Burnett Work, and then my show Robservations you can find on
my
YouTube.
mods have been putting out your links during the stream. They are beautiful. They are beautiful ladies. They are beautiful ladies.
Well, thank you for that.
God, this was just incredible. Absolutely incredible. I loved it.
It's great. Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, it's so much fun to dig into the specifics of the episodes.
Yeah, I think that's why it was good to start with a general discussion as regards to the prisoner, get out a lot of the themes and that sort of stuff. So when we go into the specifics,
yes,
there's lots of cool. I noticed I watched Arrival just before this show because we delayed an hour. So I thought, why not just watch Arrival again? So I watched Arrival again, and I noticed something I'd never noticed before.
Uh-oh.
And it was brilliant. And I was like...
Are you not going to say what it is? You're going to wait until we do
I'll tell you off camera if you want. I'll tell you off camera. But they can wait.
By the way, we should remind everyone, Arrival is available on YouTube for free.
For free.
The Prisoner... The Arrival is the first episode of The Prisoner, and you can find it on YouTube for free.
I'm going to stick the link into the comment section right now. Here we go. I got it. I'm dropping it. Douche. And if you are a Amazon Prime member, you can purchase the series from Amazon Prime or not, I suppose. Doesn't matter. But you can purchase it for pretty cheap. Standard def for about $10 or so. Nothing too taxing. But that is 17 episodes that you're going to love. So, Robert, massive thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug? Boosh.
No, I mean, the last thing I had that I did was, I keep talking about this, but a horror film I produced a while ago called The Hills Run Red just came out on Blu-ray here in the States. And the director, Dave Parker, and myself, we created 6.5 hours of new special features for the film. So if you're collecting physical media still, check that out. And then my channel, of course.
Get subscribed to Robert's channel right now, because we're going to be on there for 2 weeks' time with Arrival, the first episode. So your homework, folks, is to watch Arrival before the next 2 weeks is up.
Yeah.
And then we'll be discussing the show specifically. So thank you again, Robert, for coming on. This has just been...
Thanks for suggesting doing the show. This was your idea, your brainchild, and I'm very honored to be participating in it on your channel. This is so great to do. I always thought that one of the great things about being on YouTube is to collaborate with other YouTubers, and just to do a show with you on The Prisoner. I mean, if I wish that my younger self would have known that in the future, as old man with one foot in his grave, that I would be able to be on YouTube and talking about The Prisoner like this, because man, I was
thinking exactly the same. If I could say to myself back in the 90s, one day in the future, you're going to have a YouTube channel. What's YouTube? Shut up. It's irrelevant. You're going to have a YouTube channel where you're going to be able to broadcast to the world about your love of The Prisoner and talking about The Prisoner with like-minded people. I would be like,
Come on.
Come on. And it's happening. It's
And by
happening
the
right
way,
now.
you know, I love that we're talking about something that we love.
Yes.
That we
It's
have
been
a
very
lifelong
positive
love for. I
Yes.
mean, you know, we can gush and wax rhapsodic about something that has already been proven to be great. It is beyond reproach, and we can
Yes.
still talk about it. This is the kind of thing that I want to do more of in my life.
Yeah, I mean, people say, "Oh, you talk about a lot of negative stuff," and it's like, I'm talking about negative stuff because it used to be positive.
Right.
You know, these are things which used to be positive, which have been pulled down.
Yes.
You know, you get me talking about something I love. This is the as that you get. This is
Yes.
the gush that you get. And as you can see, these are the levels of conversation that you can have.
I'm grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah, I just like, this has been like best couple of hours of my life for a while. You know, it's just been great. It's just been a wonderful thing to actually discuss. So with that said, massive thank you to everyone who turned out. We've got about 1,100 at the peak, which was fantastic.
That's great.
So huge thank you to everyone for turning out. Yeah, I thought for a prisoner discussion straight off the bat, I thought that's pretty darn good. Big thank you to my mods, my ladies, for doing wonderful stuff. Everyone who hit the join button became a member today. Thank you so much. And everyone who hit the super chat button, thank you very much indeed for supporting the channel as well. And Robert and I will be back in 2 weeks with the discussion on Arrival. So make sure that you do your homework. You wouldn't want to be unmutual now, would you? So you take care, everyone. And bye for now. Oh, no.